Just a continuation of my last video. But yeah, right now, definitely with Pluto and Aquarius, is definitely a time of within one's own personal journey, having no fear, right? Or at least for me, within the, the framework that I'm understanding with this energy is not having fear and not being swayed by the external noise that might occur, right, with just life happening, and knowing that I have the power to switch realities, to shift realities, to leap into somewhere else. I was really thinking to myself, like, people are really about to start doing that, just consciously or unconsciously, just with the choices that they're making and the indifference and the stoicism and the detachment and the unbotheredness that will, naturally arise with Pluto being in Aquarius, and people will just be, flipping through realities like we're flipping channels. Ooh, ooh. I just got that. It's like I don't like this one. Flip. If I'm not really a flip. We have infinite possibilities, and just tuning in until we hit the right one that we want. Right, having full creative control over your reality. So the power of choice as well would definitely be very prevalent in terms of what you entertain and what you don't. Because I feel like with Pluto and Capricorn, like we didn't really have necessarily the power of choice. I mean, we always have the power of choice, but the circumstances were more dire, right? The severity of the consequences were much more clear, right? And it's kind of like you either have to repeat the loop or you go through, you know, the path that may not necessarily be the most instantly gratifying, but will lead you and gain you, you know, what you want materially, right? Or the acquisition of a certain thing, the ownership of a certain thing, including yourself, right? Whatever that looks like. But now it's like with Aquarius being air and it being masculine, it's like there's there's a fixed sense of expression, right? And now it's like I mean Capricorn doesn't necessarily bend unless it has to, right? Because that internal knowing and the external goal that it wants to reach, right? And the sacrifices that it's willing to make and the choices and the boundaries that it's willing to place in order to reach said goal, right? To reach certain height, right? That's the internal alignment and shifting to reach an external, place, space, plane, height, pinnacle, right? Material acquisition, the materialization of something, the ownership of something, the containment of something. And now with Aquarius, it's more of like the focus is now expression, self expression, right? So it's like things have to bend to me instead of you bending with things to acquire some certain thing. It's more of like you expressing, and if the external rejects or limits or tries to hinder your expression, you kind of just move and shift your attention to something that, honors it, or that recognizes it, or that something you like, right? So it's like the uncomfortability, the limit that makes Capricorn so composed, so tight, so rigid, so self composed. I just said that. So focus on self preservation. Now it's like the limits that I see that I don't like, I'm going to continue um, expressing anyway, but I will just express in a space that I like, So it's like now I'm aligning in terms of ideals. Now I'm aligning in terms of things that honor, you know, my dreams, that honor my genius, that honor the life that I want to create for myself, the society that I would like to exist within, right? The community, the chosen community that I want to cultivate for myself, or that I would like to surround around myself, right? Instead of, being just that one person at the top, at the pinnacle of what you want to control in terms of yourself and what you want to contain, right? So that's where the air element comes in. So things are going to be quicker, the shift will be quicker. However, it won't be as fickle as Gemini might be, or as one could say pleasing as Libra can be, because Aquarius is really about its unauthentic, unapologetic expression, it being the polar opposite, or not opposite, but the polar, on the nodal axis with Leo, right? So it's shining regardless. And it's unencumbered, it's unbothered, it's unfazed by the reaction of its shine, because it knows it's a glitch. It knows that. It knows that it's something not normal, not regular, and that is a part of the shock factor, or the attention that it receives because of the shock factor, because of the offbeatness of its uniqueness. Yeah.